If we're talking about governments, I think that Singapore and Malaysia have probably done the most to prepare for TPP and AAC. Both have taken steps, for instance, to strengthen intellectual property rights. SME Corporation of Malaysia has been actively encouraging companies to move into high-tech and innovation-driven businesses. Spring, which is a Singaporean agency, has been providing financial support to about 1,500 SMEs to upgrade their operations in anticipation of higher competition in their markets. International Enterprise Singapore has been providing support to SMEs to help internationalize their businesses. If we're talking about enterprises across Southeast Asia, I think it's pretty clear that overwhelmingly CEOs are positive about AAC 2015. In fact, we've conducted a survey of several hundred CEOs, both inside and outside ASEAN. What we find is that about 90% of Malaysian CEOs are overwhelmingly saying that they see positive benefits from AAC 2015. 81% of Singaporean CEOs feel the same way. And I think that translates into the numbers as well. So when we look at the intra-Asian ASEAN FDI, Singapore and Malaysia stand out as the highest investors in their regional counterparts. Malaysia's number 2, Singapore number 1. And I think as a result of that, these CEOs from these companies are much further along the learning curve in terms of how they build and manage an international operation.
The AEC will it will be a magnet for attracting higher quality, higher technology, modern manufacturing FDI for export and sales in ASEAN as well as in global markets. Replace the current model of largely lower value added, lower technology factories that are exporting products to Japan, the United States, and Europe. So it will increase the economic independence and autonomy of the members of ASEAN. As for the TPP, that will do largely the same thing, and it will allow access for Vietnam and ASEAN members, or those that join TPP, greater exports and GDP. Vietnam's exports are likely to increase 28% over the baseline without TPP, and the economic growth will increase 36% over the baseline without TPP. Well, the rules of the game will be changed significantly, and Vietnam companies, enterprises, and the government need to understand the rules of the game and adapt to them very quickly. I mentioned the increase in exports and GDP. Let me show you why. Looking at this slide, the most important ones are number 4, gaining access to international supply chains on the slide, and number 6, reform movement to adapt to the new rules of the game. If those are not accomplished, then the benefits will not come to Vietnam. On the international supply chain, I'm sure you all know that 66% of exports from Vietnam are from FDI factories. And there is a very low participation by Vietnamese manufacturers in producing components for those factories. You have to learn to join the international supply chain, and that's a whole different story that I'll talk about later. The second was gained from the reform and efficiency in government by applying the commitments of TPP and the AEC. The Prime Minister in his New Year's message said that the government needs to consult more closely with businesses and the people so as to make the laws more effective, more applicable to reality. That's a key point. The second point is to bring the commitments that have been made into Vietnamese legal system. For example, Customs Operations Advisory Committee, authorized economic operators, those kind of things in the customs area, in the AEC, one of the things that comes to our mind is that there is supposed to be a free flow of skilled labor. But it seems that Melissa is moving in the opposite direction with more and more restraints on foreign workers in Vietnam. So those two things are important: joining the national supply chain and reform of the administrative procedures. I don't want to be overly optimistic, but I have to say that I think it will be Vietnam. We've studied the trend in Vietnam exports to the United States and the world in the last number of years, and it is amazing that in only 7 years, Vietnam has come to occupy a position 20% of the imports into the United States from ASEAN countries, 20% in just 7 years. If present trends continue, by 2020, Vietnam will be at a level of almost 30%. So we are seeing this tremendous investment, tremendous exports to the States, and I'm sure it's going to Japan and Europe as well. And I think that will continue if we can manage to solve those two challenges of joining the international supply chain and the reform to make government more efficient.